All right, welcome to the Damas land. I'm Damas, your host, I guess. And so today we're going to be going through some ATIP requests. Now, while I'm going through these, I'm not saying that anyone's right or wrong. I will bring up that there was a narrative during COVID for the beginning part of it that there were so many people in the hospital with COVID, and it was causing ICUs to essentially be at full capacity and stuff like that. So that's why I'm showing you this. Now, there are reasons why the ICU could be at capacity when these numbers say that they're not. We're going to get into that at the end, kind of thing. But I also got quite a few different things I want to go over in terms of ATIP requests that I've received. Now, I didn't put in these ATIP requests, someone else did. I just saw that they're available and I downloaded them. That's how I got them, right? So just make sure that's all nice and clear there. So let's take a look at this. Bring me right down there. All right, so what we're looking at here is there we go. Intensive care occupancy rates. So we're going to look at those instead of the acute care. And this is for 2016 to 2017. And, there we go. So down here, so you can take a look. So if you live in British Columbia, you'll be able to see maybe your hospital in there and stuff like that, right? To get an idea of what you're looking at. So the different regions and the different hospitals. So down here, we're looking at the percentages of people that are in the ICU. And we're looking at 84% occupancy all the way up to 88.6% occupancy over the different quarters, right? So that's April 1st to June 16th, June 17th to September 8th, September 9th to December 1st, and December 2nd to March 31st. At least that's the quarters that they wrote down for that year. So we're going to take a look at 2017, 2018. I'm just going to be quickly going through this because I don't want to waste too much time. So we got 85.3% at the beginning of that fiscal year, all the way up to 88.1%. And remember, we're not even in the COVID yet, right? So then 2018, 2019, so we're looking at 84.2% to 87.9%. So it looks like, from one, period to the next, there's about a, 3%-ish sort of increase. And then now we're looking at 2019 to 2020, right? So 2020, this will be December 13th to March 31st. That's the one part in December or in 2020 with COVID that is going to be sort of prevalent, right? And we were at an 84.7% occupancy. Now, I don't think the narrative for ICUs being overrun came in until later, but let's take a look at 2020 to 2021. So from April 1st to June 25th, the total ICU occupancy for the first quarter was 70.6, right? Now, there's a lot of reasons why that could be. For example, it could be that a lot of people weren't going to the hospital, and then people weren't being admitted to ICU that maybe previously would have been admitted to ICU. Maybe they deemed their conditions not to be serious enough to go into ICU and stuff like that, or they kept them in their original beds and acted like those beds were ICU. So I'm not saying that anything is necessarily false or true, but these are the numbers for British Columbia. So let's take a look. So then we go to 75.8, and then we go to 80.8, and then we go to 82.6. Now 82.6, that is going into 2021 after the vaccine campaign had started, or right around the time that started, all the way up until March 31st, right? Let's take a look at 2021 to 2022. Now, this doesn't show the quarter going into 2022, but there's one thing I want to kind of point out here. Oh, and also another thing I want to point out is some of these hospitals did have an occupancy of over 100%, right? So, there were some hospitals that were over capacity, like Abbotsford Regional Hospital and Cancer Care. That was overrun for, this whole section here. But there are a lot of hospitals that weren't at all, right? I mean, northern hospitals, they don't have very many ICU beds, but they weren't really overrun. So anyways, so what we're looking at here is 93.5% occupancy rate for the third quarter from September 17th to December 9th. Now, what happened around that time period? Well, one, we had the vaccine passport in British Columbia come in on the 13th of September. That's when they first marketed it as when you needed to have some sort of proof of vaccination. And then going into December 1st, and or 6th is when we had our first Omicron patients. So this doesn't say when exactly these people were admitted. I'm pretty sure this is the, anyone who's discharged before December 9th would be counted into this, right? So that's what it is. This is going off of discharge. So if you're discharged on the 10th, it'd go into the quarter 4. But that's how that is, right? So it's kind of interesting to see these numbers in terms of the narratives that are being pushed out. Now, before I go into the next ATIP request here, I just want to talk about even if one of the ICUs was at 50%, it could still be said that it was being overrun if they didn't have enough nurses or doctors to be able to deal with that. But I'm just showing you this because I found it interesting. Now, this document was 96 pages long. I went over a whole bunch of different things. I'm going to try and figure out a way that I can share this with people. So you can go and hit me up on my Twitter and give me a follow there. And you can shoot me a message there. Also, in the description of this video will be my Discord channel. I'm working on it right now, but you can join, and I'm hoping I'll be able to put up the links at some point in those areas. Now, let's talk about the hospitalizations, right? Now, I just want to point this part out here. So it says the group of infectious parasitic diseases of respiratory systems contains most of the COVID-19 hospitalizations. Some COVID-19 hospitalizations appear in other groups. Other conditions, the group in infectious parasitic disease and respiratory system are rare. So that means that right there wouldn't necessarily show up very often because a lot of those conditions would be rare. That's what they're trying to say here. So let's take a look at this. So we have, let me just zoom out a bit to make it easier to scroll through. Okay, so we got 2015, 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, that kind of thing, right? So this shows the number of hospitalizations and the reasons for the hospitalizations. Now, the majority of these actually have to do with births and stuff like that. Then you have COPD, which my dad has. So, you know, at some point in one of these years, he would have been one of those statistics. And also, you know, pneumonia and stuff like that, right? Heart failure, unilateral knee replacement, stuff like that. So we go into 2016, and still the top 3 or the top 3, 4, whatever, all the same. And then we go down and, you know, same thing, you know, you have COPD, you have births and stuff like that. So children being born and stuff like that. Unilateral knee replacement is still in there. But you're not seeing anything to do with the parasitic disease thing that we saw before. So then let's go down to 2020. So here, in terms of hospitalizations, you still have the newborns and stuff like that. But unilateral knee replacement went up, and that I find that kind of interesting because it seems like in 2020 a lot more people were getting knee replacements, or they're hospitalized for it. So that is pretty interesting. Now, I do know one person that did have a knee replacement. Actually, I know 2 people that had knee replacements in 2020. So that kind of makes sense, right? Except for actually one of them had to go to the Yukon to get it done, so it wasn't done in British Columbia. Now let's go down to 2020. So even still in 2020, we still don't have the infectious parasitic diseases, right? Like nowhere in there does it say that. But in 2021, from January 1st to July 31st, we have it in here. It is the fifth thing down on the list in terms of reasons people were hospitalized. You know what I mean? So that is interesting because unless heart failure without coronary angiogram, unless, you know, somewhere in any of these births or whatever in any of these other ones, like even like none of these other ones, I don't think COVID could have been grouped in, right? But then when we go down to the 2021 year, that's when it starts popping up, right? So that is also very interesting because, you know, hospitals are being overrun. Of course, the majority of COVID cases did happen in 2021 and stuff like that. Okay, so we're going to go take a look at the next thing I wanted to show you. So BC card. So in terms of the BC vaccination card, I found some things that I thought was kind of interesting. I made some notes on pages here, but I wanted to bring this up right here. So this was on August 12th, and this is from Rika Gustafson, who is part of the BC CDC, right? And she's just letting, you know, everyone know about this. And essentially what she's doing is she's saying here that, where is it? That making it so people, any events like concerts, parties, or whatever, that if we do the vaccine card for that as well, it'd be a big incentive for vaccine uptake in this age group, right? So that was pretty interesting right there. Now this document is 600 pages long. I did get through a lot of it, skimming through some and stuff like that. But I want to show you some other pages here. So let's go to page 39. I can't remember what this one is. Oh, this is the Restaurant Association. That essentially there was another restaurant association that said they approved of the vaccine card, and this restaurant association, Restaurants Canada, said that they didn't approve of it. Their 14,000 members and stuff like that didn't approve. So let's go to page 44. Okay, so, oh, sorry, 46 first, because everything's backwards here. Okay. So at the bottom here, we have Brian Emerson, part of the government, the health region of the government of British Columbia, of course. And he's saying, "Hi, Haley. Are you able to do some digging to find out the vaccine passport rules for Quebec regarding to events and venues covered? Looking for concepts as well for the legal language." Now, this is dated August 30th. Now, the vaccine passport was launched or was talked about in the media by Bonnie Henry on the 23rd of August. And after the vaccine passport was announced, they started looking for legal language, probably to protect themselves, right? And so then, of course, she comes back to page 44. Sorry about that. And she says that I'm having difficulty locating the legal authority for this initiative in regards to Quebec, but she just kind of supplied everything else to do with Quebec. So that I also found very interesting because as we know, the government tends to do things before they have proof that it's going to work. And I'm not going to get into that because there's a lot of things recently in terms of that. Now, I'm going to go to page 55. So on page 55 here, we are looking at, let's see, yes, so they're looking at drafting the PHO order at that time. So they didn't have the PHO order, which I guess is kind of common practice in a sense. But they're looking for any sort of comments or flagging any concerns in regards to the PHO order. In particular, note the commitment to adhere to the BC Human Rights Code, and that on September 2nd, so this was September 1st, on September 2nd, Bonnie and Rika from the CDC are going to be meeting with the BC Human Rights Commissioner to discuss this issue. That means that they didn't even know if they were allowed to do it. So when they told everyone on August 23rd that this is what was going to happen, the one thing they saw within about a week and a half to 2 weeks after is a massive influx of people getting vaccinated. And then a week later, they're trying to figure out how they can do it legally, right? Like, how are we going to do this so it doesn't affect people's rights and stuff like that? And I think we can all agree that it affects people's rights, but let's just go from there. All right, so all right, there's one other thing I want to bring up on this document, and it's page 341. I found this by chance because, like I said, I was skimming through. Now, this is University of Victoria, and they were going through and looking at how this might work and stuff. So this was September 10th, I think it was, that they were talking about this. And so one of their concerns, where is it? It's on the bottom here. Yes. Risks and considerations. So there was a smart health card verifier app. There was also another one that could be used by restaurants, but this one they said that had some concerns in terms of shows the date of birth, name, dose dates, location, and vaccine type. Now the one that I downloaded that I tested just for fun, it only showed vaccinated or not vaccinated or partially vaccinated. That's all it showed. But this app that some people were allowed to use apparently at the time gave all of that extra information. Now this was on September 10th. Let me just double check that. 3/37 was the date for that. So yeah, so this went out on September 9th, my bad. So that was 4 days before the vaccine passport was going to be getting initially launched in British Columbia. So I just want to show that because it kind of shows a few things that are, you know, all that. Now I just want to bring this up as well. So this is the vaccine card messaging that they did on August 23rd. And just so we all remember. So you can pause here, take a look at this. One of the things is by choosing to get vaccinated, you choose to be able to support local restaurants, attend family weddings and stuff like that. Yeah, that's not, people would have chose to support those things if they were allowed to choose to support those things, right? Bodily autonomy is worth more than other things in a lot of people's minds, right? Okay, so I wanted to take a look at this. So this right here, it's 26 pages long. If you want me to do a full video on it, I can. This is a deeper dive into publicly available Ontario data on COVID-19 vaccination. Now, this was a report that was prepared for blank, member of parliament, blank, by independent researcher, blank, and all that stuff, but June 2022, right? So this was right in the time frame of, they were looking at, it was when they were going to be renewing the vaccine passport federally. Now, I don't know, member of parliament, that to me sounds like it's federal. I don't know if this is federal or not because it is sort of focusing just on Ontario. So you can let me know down in the comments what you think. Let's take a look at this. So they went through and they looked at a lot of different data. And so do the COVID-19 vaccines prevent infection and hospitalization, right? So they ended up putting together this chart, severe outcomes, right? So severe outcomes meaning hospitalization. And let's take a look at this. So let's look at their data here, right? So you can pause this if you want. I'm going to go through it and we'll read it. So shows figure 1 shows the cases who were vaccinated with at least one dose and are hospitalized over the period of December 14 to 2020, May 22, 2022. According to the chart, we observed the following highlights. Overall, it is evident that the COVID-19 vaccines did not prevent infection or hospitalization since all the cases indicated by the colors of the chart in the hospital are vaccinated. These cases represent severe outcomes as indicated by the tile in green. So this is all severe outcomes, and you can kind of see, so this is like day whatever into the pandemic, right? So we got like 486 over here, right? So so that's just what this is showing, right? So god darn it. So then the fully vaccinated with booster, post-booster dose in light blue shows an increase of hospitalizations around the first 14 days after they got the shot. The higher frequency of hospitalizations continue for about 2.5 months, after which there's a even larger number of cases in the hospital. So, you know, with the booster, they were noticing, you know, a pretty significant increase with the booster. And what I forgot to say before was a rise in hospitalized cases occurs in the fully vaccinated post-series completion in the dark blue of the chart within 5 to 6 months, or day 155 and 200. So that when you start seeing the dark blue in the chart, that is about 5-6 months after the people ended up in the hospital. So it didn't stop any of that from happening. We were told it would. And then what are the trends for the vaccinated and unvaccinated cases in the hospital? So we can see from this chart right here, hospitalized people, and this is going all the way back to December 14th, before people actually got the mass vaccination. So we can see that the vaccinated, unvaccinated did end up in the hospital a lot more, but at the same time, you can almost on every single one of these see some sort of, you know, increase over the vaccinated. Now, I'm going to pause this here. I'm not going to go over it, and you can take a look at what it says. If you want me to do a longer video on this, I can, but I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible because I'm probably going into 19 minutes right now. So anyways, you guys have yourself a wonderful day, and we'll catch you later.